everyone, and welcome back to the Love Like Crazy podcast. We're your hosts, Jay and Stacey Coleman, and we're here in our home today. We have some very special guests with us that you are just going to love. They're going to share with us their story, their experience, and with foster care. And we're so excited about this conversation today, and we appreciate you tuning in.
Yeah, we've got some very dear friends with us today, Steve and Sara Easterling, and we're about to get into a pretty in-depth conversation. Got a lot of great things that I think are going to really encourage you. And as we prepare to do that, I just want to take a moment to thank all of our listeners for being a part of this podcast. As always, if you would, make sure that you like, you subscribe, you share, and let all your friends, everybody know about this podcast, because we are all about building a stronger marriage and a stronger family. So today we have with us Steve and Sara Easterling, and it's that this is a couple that have been in our lives now, what, Steve, 17 years?
Yeah.
You guys actually, when we launched the church, y'all came and have been a part of the church, been stable, solid, apart, served, helped, coached. I mean, just been a tremendous source of encouragement, not just to me and Stacey, but to so many people throughout the church. And we're just blessed to have you today as our guests here for an episode of Love Like Crazy podcast. So do me a favor, greet everybody, tell them a little bit about yourselves, about your story.
Tell us all about Steve and Sara.
All right. We're Steve and Sara Easterling. Like Jay, Pastor Jay, whatever you call him, says.
Whatever you call
him. We've been friends we've been friends since we met each other.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we started our journey at Journey almost 17 years ago next month. Sara and I have been married 25 years this past December.
Awesome.
December what?
December the 4th.
Okay, I didn't know if y'all were married on Christmas Day or not.
No, December the 4th, and I know that because Sarah's birthday is the 17th, and then we have Christmas the 25th.
So
and
it's a busy month for y'all.
Just to get this out the way, there are no separate gifts.
Okay, I was going to ask
there
that.
are separate gifts. I'm sorry, there is no one big gift.
No,
is what I'm trying to
right.
say. It's all separate.
You have to honor every important
That's what I'm saying.
day.
I probably would have married her right around Christmas. That way, you only got to do one gift. So,
Yeah.
Well, Sara and I met many years ago, as I was sharing a story about my 10-year high school reunion. That was our first date. And Sara and I had a conversation as we were dating. If we could do anything in the world with our lives, what will we do? And the one thing that we looked at each other and said was, hey, give a child a home that doesn't have a home, that needs a home at the time. And it was just amazing that we were both on the same page with that. And I knew at that point in time that that's who God intended for me to be with.
You saying y'all had that conversation when y'all were dating?
When we were dating.
Okay, that's pretty awesome.
So, and little did I know, but Sara had told me later on that she had received a prophetic word in her life when she was younger that she would be a foster parent. It just, the Lord knows what he's doing when he matches two people together and brings two people together. And Sara and I opened our home from the very beginning after we got married. I actually went to work one day and come home and had a group of brothers in my home from 13 months old to 8. And I'm like, what in the world's going on here? And Sara had decided that, we had finished foster care training, and we decided to be foster parents. And back up a little bit, and I come home and all of a sudden there's kids in our home with little means, that we had. But and Sara can attest to this. It doesn't matter what you have. One thing we've learned throughout the years is that these kids need love, and they just want somebody to assure them that it's going to be okay.
Well, let me ask you this. You talked about the training, foster care training. What does that look like?
I'm sure it's much different now from what we did it, 20, 25 years ago. Go ahead.
Well, it was every Saturday for several months.
Mm-hmm.
They come to your home. They pretty much look everywhere, under your bed, in your closet. They want to make sure that your home is a safe environment for children. And they pretty much talk about everything. They talk about anything that can happen, could happen, has happened, may happen. And you kind of you feel like you're prepared, but you're not prepared until you do it. But,
especially as young as, and I say we were still young. Everybody knows I'm a little bit older than Sarah, and Sarah will remind everybody of that. But, you know, you come home one day and you have an instant family, and you're not prepared for what these children are in your home because of, you know, and you hear stories and you're like, that's unreal. That can't happen. And, you know, going back a little bit just to share some of my childhood. You know, I grew up, you've heard me talk about my story before with a father that was pretty much, he was not involved in my life, and, you know, told me one day when I was a teenager that I would never amount to anything in life, you know, and just the trauma from that, and, you know, going through a broken home, and watching my mom remarry and being raised by a man that, you know, believed in me after a time, but that was later on in life, and he kind of taught me how to be an adult. And I always said that I didn't want children to have to deal with what I had to deal with as a child, and the mental trauma, and, you know, wasn't, and we've had you know, cases of physical trauma, and but in coming home and finding those group of boys in that home, it was like, what in the world is going on here? And our whole lives just changed from that moment, you know.
Well, now let me ask you this. So you that was your first experience with foster care, coming home with those boys. You said there were 3?
4.
4. Okay. So how many over the course of how long? Because I know now y'all are kind of like us. You're moving towards that empty nesting season. You know, how long of a period of time did y'all foster for?
we started in
Several years,
2000, 2000 or
2000,
2001,
and up until we took
until we adopted Reese.
Our youngest, who is 18 now.
That would have been probably 2008,
Yeah, but
maybe, whenever we were done with her case. Yeah.
So over that period of time, how many kiddos did y'all foster? How many did y'all have entered through the house?
About 13.
Yeah.
Some would stay.
Okay.
And we've had some short term as well. We always say 11 boys and 4 girls. We had an instance to where we got a call in the middle of the night and had to go to District 1 police station on Plank Road in Baton Rouge and pick a young lady up that ran away from Georgia, ran away from home, and we housed her for a while. And that, you know, it's just a different experience. But Sarah and I made a conscious decision somewhere along the way. We did some studies about foster care and who got the worst rap with foster care. And we figured out real quickly that it was teenage boys, because nobody wanted them. I mean, they were already teenagers. Nobody wanted to house them. And you know, we were youth pastors at the time. And the Lord just kept dealing with us about, you know, as we seen teenagers come in our youth group, and he's like, these boys they just get a bad rap. And we decided to start working with the foster care system and start taking young men out of group homes. And we would take one out of a group home and we'd bring him in for a few months, and we would ask him, hey, if you could bring another one out of that group home, who do you think would thrive best in this environment? And they would tell us, and we'd go back and get the next one. And we would raise those boys from 13, 14, 15 years old into adulthood, and then they would go on their way. We weren't always successful with each one of them, you know, because some of them decided to take a different path. But for the majority, during that time that we fostered kids like that, you know, they got the gist of living in a family environment, and that's what we wanted to give them.
Want to give them the feel what a normal family would be like.
What a normal family would be like.
Well, now, Sarah, go ahead, babe.
But did you feel like, even in your training of foster care, that were you able to say, well, I only want to foster this age? Or
Yes.
and so that most people, when they do train for foster care, they want the babies
Mhm.
and the little ones, because obviously teenage years are a lot rougher in general in a family that's, you know, together. But then when you are presented with so many different backgrounds and traumas,
It
makes it more complex.
It is, and I honestly feel, and we'll talk about the adoptions, I guess, in a little bit, but I kind of feel like that because we were obedient and listening to raising the teenage boys, it prepared us for later on, and we were rewarded in a sense with, younger children that we could adopt. And I mean, that's just how I've always felt. But
to answer your question, you can select
Yeah.
ages, and you can select to only do adoption, and you can select to only do foster care.
Okay.
We were kind of open to whatever. We were 0 to 18, and we were like, we'll do whatever. If it works out, it works out. But yeah, I'm glad we did the teenage boys. That was the best experience for us.
I know that in Louisiana specifically, we've heard of the shortages of foster parents. Like you've got there's more foster kids than there are places for them to
Yes.
go. Do you know some of
I do.
the numbers on that?
Yeah, currently there's about 4,200 and some change foster kids active in the state of Louisiana. Those are children that are in the custody of the state, and there's less than 2,000 certified foster homes in the state of Louisiana. So that is a deficit.
So
for
roughly
sure.
about 55 to 60% of those kids
Yes.
don't have a place to go.
Right.
Well, they may, because some foster homes can accommodate more than one child, but you kind of run into a problem when the state has some rules, right? So if you're adopting a child through foster care, they don't want you to disrupt that by taking in another child. So they might temporarily not close it, but not allow you to take any more children in. And we actually experienced that for a little while too, whenever we were going through adoption.
Okay. So when it comes to, are you telling me that there are actually like these group homes?
Yes.
Is that, and I don't mean to be crude when I say this, is that what we used to refer to as orphanages?
Mhm.
So
Modern
is it-
day,
it's-
yeah.
Modern day orphanages.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
I
so
don't
if
even-
there's not a home, then that can take.
They have
the-
group homes
they-
and they have
they go in-
emergency
I
situations.
was thinking, where are all of these extra
Yeah.
kids?
I
Where do
didn't
they
even know that
go?
they had orphanages
Mhm.
anymore.
They
They
still
do.
do. I think there's one in Monroe.
There's quite a few.
There's a Baptist boys home in Monroe
Mhm.
still.
I had no idea.
Yeah, there's quite a few.
The Methodist Children's
Methodist
Home.
And it's
Children's
all
Home,
open. They have
ages.
two locations.
It's all.
Yeah, it's
they
all
have,
ages.
Well,
I'm not sure what it is, but
I'm
it
not
used
sure
to be
the
all
age bracket,
ages,
but
yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's.
Do they do more just girls and just boys, or do they try to keep the siblings together?
That's a tough question.
That's a tough one. That's a
It just
tough
depends on the
Just
situation.
depends on the
And-
situation.
Most
and-
homes
and-
are let me rephrase. They do have all boy and all girl, but like some of the bigger group homes will be co-ed, but they'll be separated, like have a
Right.
girls area and a boys area.
And some foster homes will only take boys, and some foster homes will only take girls. So, and then there's some foster homes that will allow the siblings to be placed together.
Let me ask you this now. If somebody says, okay, I'm hearing this, and with the shortage, we got a heart to be foster parents. What's the process look like for them to foster?
Ooh, well, I would say really pray and seek God about that, because it is a divine calling, because these children have been through some stuff that we haven't faced, most of us, and be prepared for the ugly, because it comes out. And if you feel like that is a calling you have, then you can reach out to a local DCFS office. They will connect you with home development, which is another little part of the agency. And then they will set up you with training. And for a while, because of COVID, they were often offering the training virtually, which was very convenient for people, but I'm not sure that they're still doing that. Definitely something to find out more about.
I would encourage anybody that has, that thinks that they want to do, foster care. Number one, do your homework on, the foster care system. Make sure that you're prepared for it, because like Sarah says, you don't know what's going to walk in your front door. Nobody's ever
Yeah.
really prepared for it, but they do their best to get you through, training, to give you real life situations that you're going to be faced with, but they may not see the child that's coming into your home, and they may have a whole different situation than what you're prepared for.
Yeah.
And we've run, I've been to court with kids for bringing, most of the time, I'll just share this, they show up with a garbage bag with clothes. We've seen that probably at least 10 times.
Thankfully, that has been fixed.
That has,
I thought that I had read somewhere that they had fixed that, which to
Yeah.
me, it's insane that the foster care system
right.
would provide a kid with a trash bag to put their stuff in. So
Well,
glad
it's
that they
not
fixed
so
that.
much the kid; it's what the kid left with.
They may have
and
had to leave
they had to-
suddenly.
exactly.
And they don't
They
have
just-
a
I
lot
can
to
only
bring.
They
think
had to
they-
be removed from their home all of a sudden, and
Mhm.
all they could grab was certain things, and that's that's what they could do. But thankfully, the system has fixed that. But we just to share, we had a child show up one time with 4 suitcases. I'm like, man, that's wild. This kid's got all kinds of stuff. He had plenty of time to pack.
Yeah.
Next
Mhm.
thing you know, I'm in West Baton Rouge Parish Court with this guy being a defendant because he took some video games from the last foster home he was in, and that's what was in these suitcases.
Oh my goodness.
He's like, I enjoyed them games so much, I got to take them.
Exactly.
Oh, man.
But I mean, it's just one instance. I shared with you about the shoes. Of every foster child that came in our home would always get a brand new pair of shoes. That was the first thing that we did, was buy the kids a pair of shoes, because as I was, I shared with you about when I was younger, my mom couldn't afford a pair of shoes when we were coming up, and my dad was not present. And a well-known individual bought me a pair of tennis shoes for basketball because we all had to have matching shoes. And he asked me, he said, when you can, pay it forward.
Yeah.
And that was my goal, was to pay it forward.
And you've been doing that ever since.
Ever since, I mean, it's just who I am.
Yeah.
Okay, our listeners don't know this, but Steve has actually bought me 2 pairs of shoes.
It's habitual.
Air Force
love
Ones,
language.
2 pair of Air Force
and
Ones.
Air Force Ones that are gray. So,
Yeah.
and I must say, I'd never buy those for myself because I'm too cheap.
But you
And
do
so I
look,
got a good friend who takes care of it.
you're in
He's
style.
actually been renamed my stylist, so he keeps me
Yeah.
stylish.
I can tell you, it's been fun. It's been fun watching you wear them, because somebody last Sunday took a picture of him walking across stage in his Air Force
Preaches and
Ones.
sneakers.
Preaches and sneakers, yeah. But
Oh goodness.
go ahead.
I want to ask Sarah this. So the
Okay.
process of somebody says, okay, I've prayed about it, we're going to foster. From that point to where a child actually enters the home, what's the average time? It's 3 months, 6 months, a year? What's the
For us, it was kind of, gosh, but it took us a
Right
while to
after
go through the
training.
training because we opted for the Saturday training. They
Right.
do offer like sometimes during the week. Of course, this was 20 plus years ago, so I'm probably a little off. I hadn't trained in a while. But you can. What was the question? I'm sorry.
the
How long
timeline?
the
Timeline.
Yeah.
Okay. For us, it was like a year. It took a while for us to get certified. They want you to go through all the training. You have to do a certain number of hours. I think it's somewhere around 25. I think that's the number.
May have changed.
And then
by now,
every
yeah.
year you have to do a certain number of hours to
Recertification.
Okay.
Okay.
maintain. And I think after you finish the training and after they've come to your home, and they run a background check with the FBI and with all of that. So once they've cleared you as someone who can be a foster parent, then they would certify your home, and then you're open. And I got to tell you, once they know you're open, they're going to send you a child. And
Because the need is so great.
because the need is great, and just to be prepared.
So there's a possibility they're not just going to send you one; they're going to send you numerous children.
It could definitely happen. Now, if you have stipulations, like if you only want some people want a younger child because they're hoping to maybe adopt that child. Maybe they
Mhm.
walk through infertility. I don't know their story, but some people might pick 0 to like 5 or something like that. Then you're limited. So they're only going to bring you children.
Or they may already have
criteria.
other children in the home.
Yeah, or they may already have
Mhm.
children in the home, so they might be restricted that way.
I got a question for you that I know everybody always has on their mind, but nobody's ever going to ask it. I'm going to ask it today. Do you take care of these children out of your own pocket, or is this something that the state actually?
That is a great question. Okay, I will tell you, you have to for a while take care of them out of your own pocket.
Okay.
The state does provide reimbursement. It used to be somewhere around $20, $21, $22 a day to take care of that child.
Was it that much?
if it was even that much, depended on the age of the kid.
I think it was somewhere around $10 a day.
For like it wasn't a lot of money.
It
You're
wasn't.
You're
Right.
not getting
So
rich.
you're not
off
in
of
it for the
this, okay?
funds?
No, you're not in it for the funds.
So you
that's
we
you
were
don't have
hopeful, but it
anybody who
didn't
does
happen.
this and says this is going to be my full-time job.
Well,
Yeah.
you know,
No, we
if
both
you
worked
look
outside
at
the home.
yeah, we did, and at the time, and if you look at it like that, then I would say that you're probably in it
Correct.
for the wrong reason.
Yeah, your
Mhm,
heart's not in the
mhm.
right
You're not.
place.
And you know, we've actually got to talk to several people at the church have come to us and talked to us about, you know, the same process. You know, what do we do? You mentioned infertility. That's something that, you know, Sarah and I struggled with, you know, at the beginning of our marriage. But we already knew that, you know, this was what God called us to do. And we let him take care of all the details. You know, the $10 a day or $20 a day, we never missed anything, you know, because
I
we
think he's
knew.
right. I think it was more like $10.
Yeah, because
But
we were,
I don't know.
you
It
know,
was a long
we
time
actually
ago.
had a worker, our one of our worker for our four boys that we first got, came in our home, and she's looking around. She goes, "Y'all can take more kids. I can put up a wall here, and
The state
we
will
can
pay
put
for it.
the
Yeah.
state will pay for it." And I'm like, "I'm good." You know, we got four. Let me figure out these
my
four
goodness.
You're gonna have
first.
like 20 kids in your house.
Yeah.
Like, wait, we're trying to foster, not run an orphanage.
Exactly.
I think they were going to make you a group home.
I think that was the intention. But you know, talking about those first four boys, two of them actually came back about a year later. The two younger ones came back about a year later, and we got them again. You know,
Mhm.
after their mother at the time did her case study, and you know, they have their parents. You know, it's a lot of things not talked about in foster care with the parents of these kids. As a foster parent, you have to accept that those are their parents, regardless of what they're going through at the time. And you know, you can't talk about their parents. You know, you can't say, "Well, I wonder why your mom did that," or "This is why you're here," or something like that, because you know, that's the last thing they need in a foster home situation.
I guess best way to look at it is you're not there to bring correction in that area. You're there to help be a healing.
You're there to
agent.
love them through the process of
And
whatever they're going
in most
through.
situations, aren't they trying to maybe reunite?
Reunification is a
It's
big thing
always
in the
the
courts.
goal.
Is always the
Mhm.
goal in a court system.
Mhm.
Well, I want to say this. The reason why I asked that question is because I wonder if a lot of people say, well, you know, I wouldn't mind fostering, but I don't know if I can afford to do that.
Mhm.
And I think for people to know, you know, that the state will reimburse you somewhat or help you
Yeah.
with that,
Yes.
it would help people realize like this is something we can do. Because
Yeah.
if you've got a young couple, even if they're dealing with infertility, but y'all know, a young couple struggling financially,
Right.
and it's like, we love kids, we want to adopt potentially, but man, you know,
Can I afford it?
can we afford
Yeah.
this? And so that's kind of why I asked that question,
No,
because I
it's a
think a
great
lot of people
question. Yeah.
want to know.
Well, don't they
Yeah.
now have like some certain, I don't know if it's a separate organization or ministry that helps to provide maybe some things for when you suddenly take a child in. I know now that they come to you not necessarily with a trash bag, but like a duffel bag and maybe some supplies, some toiletries or things like that they would need immediately, because if they're taken from their home suddenly and they don't have anything, there are places that
we've
help.
had times when we were helped to go get clothing, and you know, we didn't have a crib. We had a 13-month-old. We had to have a crib.
Right.
You
You need a
know,
lot of,
things
depending
like
on the
that,
age of the
you know.
child.
There are like nonprofit agencies. The Foster Village is one here in our local community. I'm sorry, it's called the Family Village now.
The Family Village, yes.
They provide a lot, and a lot of people make donations to them. However, when a child first comes into care, into the state custody, the state does provide them with a clothing allowance and an incidental allowance, and they provide them with luggage. So that
Okay.
child, when they come to you, should have at least the essentials,
The
right?
basics.
Yeah, they should come with that.
All right. So you guys actually, you were able to come to the place where you adopted. And so, you know, you talked about some younger ones that came into your care that you were able to adopt.
We had after all these boys, I didn't know what it was like to be a girl dad. In fact, I didn't want to be a girl dad.
Well, we only took boys by design.
We only took boys by design because it was easier, and it was it was fun for me because and Sarah was the only female in the house, and I'd always tell them, hey, look, she belongs to me. You better respect her, because if you don't respect her, then we're gonna have an issue. And I never had an issue because that was the queen. You didn't mess with the queen. They respected that.
Well, I understand that being outnumbered, Sarah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
All
you should.
boys.
Yeah. You
Relatable.
should. And you're
boys.
the queen. But we had a social worker call us and say, I have a 7-year-old little girl that needs a home. And Sarah approached me and said, hey, social worker, which we knew, called and said she has a 7-year-old that thinks that she would fit good. And we still had 2 boys in the home at the time. And I said, no, absolutely not. And I guess it was about 2 weeks that I would toss and turn, and I'd toss and turn at night, and I'd toss and turn at night. And I kept getting subtle reminders that, hey, this is what I called you to do. You need to listen to me and do it. So I remember waking up and telling Sarah, say, hey, Sarah, go ahead and call her and tell her to bring that little girl. Bring her to the house and let's meet her and go from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget my
Tiny.
tiny little Brooklyn walked in the door, stood in the walkway of my living room with tears in her eyes.
She was scared.
And she was scared half to death. And I just gently looked at her and I said, hey, come sit down. And I didn't know what to do, Jay. I was a boy dad, And she came and sat down, and I looked at her and I said, are you scared? She said, because I'm not a little guy. I'm not a petite Brooklyn. I'm a big guy. And I said, are you scared? And she goes, yeah. And I said, me too. I said, because I have no clue what I'm about to do, bringing a little girl in my house. I said,
I'm a boy dad.
I'm a boy. I like my guys. I like to play football, and
You became a girl dad pretty easy. So
well, the moment she looked at me, she said, "Can we go get a baby doll?" I said, "Get in the truck. Let's go get a baby doll." And I did. I drove her and I bought her a baby doll. And Brooklyn has been our child since that day.
Yeah.
Now y'all grandparents.
Now she has a little boy. It's almost 5 years old, Grayson.
Yeah.
And he is our heart. I mean, he is
so much fun.
He is quite. Y'all met him. He's quite the character.
Oh, he is.
Now Grayson's not our only grandson. We have two of the boys that we raised out of group homes have sons who are actually named their kids after me.
Oh, that's awesome.
What an honor.
And it is an honor. And they both call me Poppy, and they'll call periodically, and we'll go watch them play sports. And we're very involved in their lives, even though they don't have our last name. We're still Mimi and Poppy to them.
Yeah.
So
all right, now we got to talk about Reese.
Oh my gosh.
Reese was, when we met y'all, she a little baby.
Reese was in the nursery.
She was a little over a year old. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And she's a 18-year-old, soon to be high school graduate, going to Nichols.
Oh my goodness! I
Yeah.
cannot believe she's going to graduate high school.
Yeah,
I know. It's crazy.
Reese is an amazing story, and I'll let Sarah.
Oh gosh, I
tell
don't
you
know if
the
I can tell it
story of
without
Reese
crying.
because
Oh my gosh.
you can do it.
Oh Lord, that'd be hard. Okay. Whew. All right. Well, okay. I think that for us, we didn't really do a lot of infertility testing or any of that, but nothing was happening. So, but our plan had always been to raise foster children and have a family, like simultaneously. But when that didn't happen, we were like, well, we might need to look at this, And so we were kind of starting to make plans, I guess, to, make those appointments and do all the stuff. And oh my gosh, I was in church on Sunday, and it was November the 19th, and I'll never forget it. And the Holy Spirit spoke to me during worship, and he's like, ask me for a baby. And I'm like, oh no, I'm not going to do that because, I've been doing that for a long time and it doesn't seem to be working. But anyway, I did it anyway. I'm like, and I think it's kind of, I'm embarrassed to even admit this, but my prayer was something like, Lord, I still want that baby, and so I say this to anybody that that's dealing with infertility, just a little shout out there, a little pin, to surrender it to God, to surrender that to the Lord, because I think for me, oh God, okay, I need a minute.
It's okay. Take your time.
Excuse me. Once I surrendered it to the Lord, I felt like that was, that I was able to heal, Anyway, the story gets much better. Okay, so the very next day is November 20th, and our daughter was born that day. And they called me the next day.
Hold on. You saying that Reese was born that
Reese
day?
was born
the very
November
next day.
20th.
Wow.
And, ooh,
Which I had just lost my pops, the man that took over raising me
Yeah.
6 months earlier. That was also his birthday.
Really?
So that's who she gets her name out of. Her name is Leanne. His name was Robert Lee. So she has, and the Ann part comes from Sarah's sister.
I'd
who
lost my
passed away.
sister a few years before,
So
a couple years before, in 2005. And Reese was born in 2006.
So God gave you a baby.
Oh, he did. He gave me a baby. And that was the week of Thanksgiving. So, everything happens. We had to pick up this baby. We meet them
at Walmart.
We met Child Protection Services at Walmart. And we had to buy everything for a baby. We had nothing for a baby.
Reese will
I
tell
won't
you,
even
Reese will
tell
tell you,
y'all.
you can get everything at Walmart, including me.
The financial situation that we were in, just everything kind of aligned perfectly for us to be able to do this. It was like all God. And we picked her up and we brought her home, and then we had Thanksgiving. We were hosting Thanksgiving, and I was very ill prepared, not going to lie, for a baby or for Thanksgiving at this point. But I had to take FMLA from work. I mean, it was all happening really quick. And I think it was that Saturday afterwards, I was sitting there holding her, and I think Steve walked in and I was boo crying, and I'm like, the Lord just reminded me that this is the baby I prayed for, and I'm boohoo crying, and I never doubted that she would be our baby, that we would be able to adopt her. But she did come through the foster care system, and we had her from 36 hours old till 18. And I mean, her story's amazing.
We still have her.
But it's her story now, and I have to quit telling it, right? I have to let her.
But she's awesome when she tells her story, and I got to tell you, Reese is an advocate for adoption. And just to hear her talk about how she was blessed with a family, and the family she was blessed with, and the siblings, that she's got to experience over the years that she may not have had. Her story is very unique. All of them story is very unique. But we adopted through the foster care system with Brooklyn and Reese.
Yeah. Well, it's been pretty cool to watch Brooklyn, grow into the woman she is, but to see Reese as a baby.
Yeah.
And
that big hair.
It makes me feel old to know that she's 18 years old.
Right.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Y'all.
Everything that we've done as foster parents and, adopting, the girls has been, it's been a stepping stone to, the next chapter in life, or the next thing that he was preparing for us, because then EJ and Deshauna came along. Very, very unique couple of individuals who have been in our lives their whole lives. And little did we know that the need would arise for them to have a family after they lost both of their parents, one being Sarah's sister, and then their father passed away. All of a sudden, these two well-loved kids are homeless, and they're part of our family, and our home was built for those individuals. And I know that, along the years that the Lord prepared us for that time to be able to say, hey, this is a natural fit. We took them in, and have raised them. And, you know, when we adopted EJ and Deshauna, Reese and Brooklyn looked at us and said, we just have one question. Because we didn't know how they would react. You know, there was their siblings, but it was their cousins as well. And I was like, what? And they were like, why did we wait so long to do the adoption process?
Well, we adopted them when they became adults.
Right. Right.
You know, they still had the benefit of their parents,
Right.
which wasn't huge, but they deserved it.
Yeah.
It was theirs.
How old were they when they came to when?
Deshauna was what, 11?
No,
12?
no. Deshauna would have been 14 when her dad passed
EJ
away.
was about 12.
14 or 15, and EJ was
12.
about 12.
Yeah.
And then there's a whole story with that too. The whole family was grieving and dealing with so much when all that came to play. But at the same time, that was when I decided to be a CASA. Because we had, after we adopted Reese, we stopped doing foster care.
So
we had closed
what is
our
that?
home.
Tell us about that.
Well, a CASA is a court-appointed special advocate.
Okay.
And this is for people that don't feel like they can be foster parents. A CASA doesn't take children into their home, but you advocate for that child. So you would spend time with that child a couple hours a month. You would spend time, like if the child is school age, you might visit them at school or something like that. But
that's a big need nowadays.
It is. Almost every case that comes through the court system that's a foster care case gets assigned a CASA. And there's definitely not as many CASAs as there are children in foster care.
And that's something when we first started fostering that was not prevalent.
Yeah, we didn't have our children.
We didn't have a voice.
I think maybe one of our children.
Maybe one, yeah. But it was something that the state has brought on that really, you know, advocates, it has helped because, you know, as much as we can do as foster parents in our home and try to help and try to, you know, teach and try to, you know, these advocates are, you know, come and meet with them and they're able to take them off. And sometimes a child will talk more to an individual that they're not around every day.
Right.
You know, and you'd be talking about, you know, foster care. And I know we'll get back to CASA, but things like going to church. That's unfamiliar to some children in this world. You know, we're church going people.
We kind of take that for granted,
right?
Like, you know, but if you've never been accustomed to that, raised in that,
right,
or even taught about Jesus,
yeah, exactly. And you know, we were youth pastors, and I know we were sitting in the congregation one time. One of our boys went missing. He hadn't been in churches hardly any in his life, and all of a sudden, out of the baptistry up top above the choir loft, here he comes flying out.
Oh my goodness!
Into the choir loft, and I mean, we're like,
he is. Whose
kid is that?
He was so much fun. We have great stories.
Exactly, but you know, one thing about being a foster parent is that I found that when we didn't know, somebody else knew, and you're there's a lot of things you're going to be unfamiliar with. There's a lot of things you're not going to know.
Yeah,
and that's okay. Because there's a lot of things that they don't know about you. And there's a lot of things that's going to take getting accustomed to you and your house. Because your house looks totally different than what their house does. And I found that church family is the best family when you foster.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, you know, I know that with the shortage that we see in the state, they need more foster parents. And in my opinion is to see the church step up and fill that role. We talk about all the time about being the hands and feet of Jesus, and what better way than to be the hands and feet of Jesus to a child who has that need within their life for stability and safety.
Well, Scripture calls us to take care of the widows and the orphans.
Yeah, exactly.
Orphans, you know,
very heart of God, right?
Exactly.
To take care of those.
So,
well, I have a question. Like whenever I know that there's, like we talked about the ministries that provide, you know, for their physical needs and stuff like that. What about like for the mental health, for the trauma that they may have occurred? Does the foster system provide like counselors, and or do they say that is a have to, you know, in most cases, or it just depends on the case?
Yeah.
Most judges will order
Okay.
psychological evals, especially for teenagers. And for children, they will recommend some type of counseling. And usually it can be done in school if they're school age. For younger children, sometimes they will recommend programs like Early Steps that kind of come in and just kind of assess the child and see where they are. I think that goes up to maybe 3 years old. I'm not positive. And then there are other programs that the pediatricians and things can recommend if a child has behavior issues, which some of these kids will come in with just because their lives have been turned upside down. And they have ABA therapy, and there's so many things available now that weren't even
wasn't
available
before.
20 years ago. You
Mhm.
know,
Mhm.
yeah, there's a lot of resources, and I will tell you this: a child that has a CASA will be more
Apt to get those
yes, because
needs
we will
met.
advocate for those things too.
Mhm. That's good.
And that has been I've loved my role as a CASA. I've done it for 11 years. I'm a volunteer. And don't get me wrong, it gets me very nervous when I have to testify in court.
Mhm.
But it's been amazing. It's been a good journey. So
Well, let me
Mhm.
say this.
That's
I just
great.
want to thank you guys for your heart to love on kids
Mhm.
and to, as I said, be the hands and feet of Jesus to those kids, because as you said, Sarah, it's the heart of God to care
Mhm.
for the widows and the orphans. And so many times, I think what we've done here today is be able to answer a lot of questions that maybe people have, because I've talked about foster care, but I've never really thought about or had the answers to some of the questions. We've been friends with you guys forever and ever, and we've talked about foster care, but just some of the practical questions that people might have. And so I appreciate you guys just coming and being able to share your heart today.
We
and sitting
appreciate you
here.
having us, and
Mhm.
we're always available for for people that have questions about what we can help them with. I mean, it's changed a lot over the years, but I can tell you one thing that hasn't changed, and that's how Jesus loves his children and people.
yeah.
And if we can show you how to do that through the foster care system, then we've done what we were called to do. And we're very blessed and very thankful, very blessed to have you guys in our lives, because y'all have seen
Yeah.
our family and our family transition many times. We've seen vice versa.
We've
So,
watched your family. Y'all been a blessing to us.
and you
So
guys have as
thank
well.
you for your heart to serve, and especially serve kids.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
It's such a powerful story and testimony, of God's faithfulness in your own life, and how, the seeds that you've sown to help all of these children in need. And then, your prayer for a baby and
My ugly crying.
but just how faithful the Lord is to answer,
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
heart's cry, and how we can turn around and be the hands and feet of Jesus. It's a very powerful story.
It's been fun.
Thank you.
well, it's been a blessing today to be able to have these dear friends with us today and to talk about something that is so near to the heart of God. And if you've got a desire to foster, to help with children, to be a CASA, to advocate for children, then I would encourage you, reach out to Steve and Sara, reach out, talk to Department of Family Health and Services in the state, because this is a need. You've heard some of the statistics they've talked about, some of the numbers they say. Step out, reach out, and see if you can help fill that need. And it's been a great conversation today, answering just a lot of practical questions about foster care and hearing about y'all's story. And so I want to thank everybody once again for being a part of this podcast. Once again, if you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, leave us a comment, leave us a review, and help us push this podcast forward and help it grow each and every day, because we really want to build stronger marriages, build stronger families. And as always, I'm Jay.
And I'm Stacey.
And this is Love Like Crazy.